like war. It makes me pound it very hard.
Thank God it's Friday!
Well, hello.
All right, welcome to the Young Turks. That was a weird start. Okay. Clear my throat a little bit. All right, Cenk, you or John Idaho with you guys. John's, of course, the host of Damage Report, 1 o'clock Eastern, YouTube. Everybody's checking it out. You know it, I know it, the American people know it. We also know the ground troops are going in. We also know that $200 billion is going out. So all of that is coming up in a little bit. Later in the program, Lewandowski going old school corruption. So that's a little interesting story. The Democrats burying a report saying that they lost the election because of Israel. Shh, don't tell anyone. Okay, so there's a lot to get to in the show for sure. And John Idaho is here to help us take a tip. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, John, to help us get through all this and take us through it. But I also forgot to mention that it's something important, which is an official prediction coming up on the show today. Oh, those are fun. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
In the first hour?
First hour, yeah.
Oh, okay. You always tease stuff that I have to like listen on my way home or something. Yeah. Okay, I'm excited. I'll actually hear one. Okay.
All right, sounds good. Let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it. Before we get into our regularly scheduled news, we do have breaking news that everyone in the audience does need to know about, and that is that tomorrow is Cenk Uger's birthday. It's a tradition that we the human race like to have around this time of year every year to mark his birth. Everyone, of course, celebrates in their own way. I make a pizza shaped like Cenk's face. It's very popular with the kids. But anyway, happy birthday, Cenk. I hope that you've got some fun planned with your family. Okay. And should the viewers celebrate at home? Of course.
Okay, you guys.
What are you gonna be doing?
You guys are very kind, and I like the idea of your chubby pizza. And is it the March 21st, the vernal equinox, where everything is in balance? I guess. First day of spring, I guess. First day of Aries, the god of war, also true. Okay, and Cenk does mean war, so there are a lot of connections. But anyways, ironically, I'm totally against war. I go to war to prevent war.
Does Cenk literally mean war?
Yes.
How have you not used that in like a TYT advertising campaign? Cenk means war.
Yeah.
They literally used to do that in wrestling. You need to jump on that.
I think I do. Although, I mean, you note the great irony of what I just said, which is that I go to war to prevent war. So,
exactly.
Right. But
yeah.
Anyways, look, I'm not gonna stop people if they wanna join to celebrate my birthday or they wanna donate through tyt.com/join. Okay, it doesn't go to me, it goes to everybody here, and we really need it. But anyways, tyt.com/join, I'll just say that. Anyways, much love, guys, I love you. Thank you for saying that, John, I appreciate it.
Awesome, no problem.
Let's do the show.
Yes, let's do it. Let's jump into, hey, what do you know? More war.
As far as $200 billion, I think that number could move. Obviously, it takes money to kill bad guys. So we're going back to Congress and our folks there to ensure that we're properly funded for what's been done, for what we may have to do in the future.
I will not vote for a war supplemental. No, I am a no. I've already told leadership I am a no on any war supplementals. I am so tired of spending money elsewhere.
For once, In response to something Lauren Boebert is saying, I can say same. Really sick of it. Really sick of how fast massive mountains of money go out the door when it comes to bombing people in the Middle East. And you saw the prediction there by Pete Hegseth. These super casual, $200 billion. Yeah, that number can move for whatever. And I bet that it will. I have a feeling it will definitely move up and up and up and up every single month for years until we've spent a couple of $1 trillion. Once again, set fire to the money necessary to rebuild America, set fire to our collective futures. But that said, Cenk, you have Lauren Boebert already saying that she's a no. You have other Republicans indicating that they might be no's. Do you think that the Republicans are going to follow suit with Lauren Boebert, or do you think Trump is just inevitably going to get whatever he asks for?
Yeah, so in this story, we're going to give you some context. Like, for example, how much did the Iraq war cost per year versus this 200 billion. We're gonna give you the comments of some of the politicians so you get a better sense of which way it's going. But most importantly, I'm gonna answer John's question about the theater of politics, right? So there's what they say and there's what they mean and what's actually going to happen. So let John give you the facts, then we'll come back and interpret the play, if you will.
Yeah, think if you're implying that Lauren Boebert can't be taken on her word, I'm not gonna sit here and listen to that, Cenk. But anyway, yeah.
So John, you know the funny thing is, before you go on, yeah, I hear you, but actually Boebert's not the issue here, right? And the reality is that the people that we thought were huge liars are liars in a different direction. The people who everybody thinks are not liars are actually the main liars. But we'll explain all that, so go ahead.
Okay, we'll jump into that. But let's talk about money. Let's talk about what the war in Iran has already cost, or what at least they're telling us it's cost over just the first 3 weeks. Now they say, according to Kevin Hassett, the guy who said that the damage this war is doing to your family's economics is the last thing on his mind. He said that the first week of the war cost $12 billion. So assuming that it hasn't ramped up, which we keep being told by Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth that they're bombing more and more and more than ever before, bigger than anyone's seen. So one would presume to think that it is more expensive per week. That sounds like $30 to $40 billion already. We don't know for sure. And that already is enough, conservatively, enough money to have totally covered the health care of 1.3 million Americans. You could throw out a lot of things like that. Gavin Newsom recently said the $200 billion they're asking for could double the annual per person spending on K through 12 education, actually investing in the future of America, expanding the ACA tax credit for a further 7 years, provide up to 2 million people the SNAP benefits they need, provide a middle-class tax break of $3,500. And that's not like replacing our military budget, which is already gargantuan. That's just the extra money that they've conjured up that they need right now and will blow through in a matter of just a couple of months. And we're already hurting from what this war has already done. So we're paying more for everything we buy. Now our tax dollars are also going to be wasted at the same time. It seems absurd, and that's not just me saying it. We're going to give you a little bit more of what Congresswoman Boebert had to say about it.
I will not vote for a war supplemental. No, I am a no. I've already told leadership I am a no on any war supplementals. I am so tired of spending money elsewhere. I am tired of the industrial war complex getting all of our hard-earned tax dollars. I have folks in Colorado who can't afford to live. We need America First policies right now, and I'm not doing that. We need the Save America Act, FISA with warrants. There's a lot of hard lines that I have right now, and we've got to get our act together if we want to keep this majority, and the path that we're going doesn't look very promising.
Should the administration get out of Iran?
That's up to the president.
Well, I mean, actually, Congress is supposed to have a pretty significant role in determining that sort of thing. Could somebody mail her the Constitution? I like the first thing she was saying, but totally abdicating all of her responsibility to have any influence whatsoever on her foreign policy is a strange follow-up to that. But in any event, she does say there's other stuff we need. We need to suppress, the vote and all that. And so maybe that's the out. Maybe I'll give you the $200 billion if we successfully strip the right to vote from a bunch of people, make it more expensive. I don't know what else she might want. I'm assuming something that stops money being spent on trans healthcare or something. There's all sorts of extra things that they could say they want in exchange for this. But that's Lauren Boebert. We also have, we could jump into one or two of the others who are sounding off on this. We have Chip Roy expressing his at least moderate reservations.
I like to be consistent. I was consistent about Ukraine. I'm going to be consistent about Iran. I want to make sure I know the game plan because we want to know what the result is going to be. I trust the president and trust Pete Hegseth, trust our national security guys to make sure they're defending our interests. But the American people don't want to be involved and embroiled in a long-term war. $200 billion is a lot of money. Yeah. He needs to come tell us, is this to replace munitions, rebuild our stockpile? Or are we talking about a long-term engagement? We need to know before we can go bless and write a blank check. But we very much support the president defending our interests. He's doing a great job.
I don't know what that last bit was about in terms of supporting our interests, but yeah, no, it's very reasonable that Chip Roy would want the president to answer questions like that. Unfortunately, he appears to have just woken up from a coma because neither Donald Trump nor Pete Hegseth feels that they owe any answers to any American, not to the media, not to their constituents, not to representatives. They don't care about Chip Roy. They don't care about the House. They don't care about the Senate. They will do whatever they want to do, in large part because they know that there's a good chance that they will get whatever they ask for. And so all of those are reasonable concerns. Cenk, we have others. We have Murkowski, we have Thomas Massey, but you feel free to jump in if you want.
Yeah, so first I want to give people the context for the cost of this war. In Iraq, we spent about $140 billion per year. Now, we were there a long time, so it wound up being a couple of $1 trillion, and there was also external costs involved too. But wait, 200 billion, how long are we planning to stay? This was supposed to be 3 or 4 weeks, and that's asking for more than a year's worth of war, theoretically. But it's possible that the war has gotten more expensive, or that we've just chosen to spend more money on this war, because Hassett says 12 billion we've spent already. Not by my calculations. Other outlets, based on other government officials that are actually in charge of the money, say that it costs $1 to $2 billion a year. And now the press is kind of landing, a day. And his press is kind of landing on 1 billion a day. Let's take that, the conservative number. Well, we've been at war for 3 weeks, so that's already $21 billion. You see how fast this is going to go, and you see how long they want to stay, right? So that's at this rate, that's about obviously 200 days of war. Now that's not a full year, but that's a hell of a lot longer than 3 or 4 weeks. So to give you a context. Now, in terms of Boebert and the rest, well, look, ironically, I kind of believe Boebert here, but not Chip Roy, and I'll explain the difference. So Boebert actually voted to release the Epstein files and took a lot of flack for it. She was one of only 4 Republicans that did that: Massey, Boebert, Nancy Mace, amazingly, and Marjorie Taylor Greene. Obviously, Greene's not there anymore, but so Massey and Boebert, since they've already taken a very, very tough vote that Trump was very mad about, have earned more credibility in being able, when they say, yes, I will actually vote against the president, right? Doesn't mean it's guaranteed, but at least she's done it before in a very hard vote. So I kind of believe that. Massey, I definitely believe. When you get to Chip Roy, enormously full of crap. And that is where most of Congress is. Whenever a politician says, well, we'll have to look at that, and it's in their own party, the leaders in their own party that's asking for it, they have voted against it approximately 0 times in my 30 years of covering politics, okay?
Yeah.
So that just means I'm gonna pretend that I'm a fiscal conservative. I'm gonna pretend that I was anti-war, but golly gee, there's nothing we can do about it. Now that we're in the middle of this war and our guys are getting killed, we're gonna have to send in, no wait, our guys are getting killed. Well, 13 already died, but as you'll see later in the show, we're going to send in ground troops. So a lot more will die, and then they'll ask for more money. Otherwise, you're against the troops. We've seen this movie 100 times, right? What's amazing is that political reporters in the national media apparently have never seen it. They were apparently born yesterday. Like, this is the exact same as script as Iraq, let alone hundreds of other things that have happened in terms of votes in Congress. But every time political reporters are like, what? Okay, Chip Roy is really concerned. No, he's not. It's totally fake, right? So now last category is Murkowski. And John, so sometimes people like Murkowski do have critical votes against Trump. She was one of the votes that saved Affordable Care Act. But overall, the game that the Murkowskis of the world play is, oh my God, I am such a moderate. That is why I'm on the fence, moderate. And they'll say it for months or however long it takes to get to the vote. Moderate, not sure, anti-war, blah, blah, blah. And at the end, there'll only be one headline that she voted yes on it, but she'll have gotten 20 headlines about how she might not vote yes and what an amazing, beautiful moderate she is. So that's the game that's being played here.
Yeah. So we should probably at least acknowledge Thomas Massey says, it begs the question, how long do they plan to be there? Kind of what you were just saying, Cenk. What are the goals? Is this the first 200 billion? Does this turn into a trillion? Obviously, we already spent $1 trillion on our military budget. Then they're like, we're just gonna add 500 billion more. We weren't even in a war when they said that. You think they're only gonna add 200 billion for a massive war? It's madness. And before we move on to one other idea that's been floated on how to pay for this, I just wanna throw out a couple of extra things that are happening right now. As all of our attention is on this $200 billion thing, Donald Trump just invoked like wartime powers to ignore Congress to allow for $23 billion in arms sales to a bunch of Gulf states, all different sorts of arms and everything. Again, Congress, their involvement is not necessary, it's not desired. Even though both of the houses of Congress are controlled by his party, he's still flipping them the double bird, and he's just gonna go ahead with selling the weapons. And I'm sure a lot of people that he knows are gonna make a bunch of money from that additional arms sales that are now going to the Middle East. And in terms of like Chip Roy saying, we want answers on how long this is gonna last and everything. This is gonna be contradicted in 10 minutes, I'm sure. But Donald Trump just said on social media, he's considering winding down operations in Iran. Maybe we're done. They're literally sending more Marines there right now. But he's saying, maybe I'm done actually, I'm good. We've accomplished our goals. And he specifically says he doesn't care about what happens with the Strait of Hormuz. That's not for us to deal with. That's for all of the other countries that use it. Whatever, it's not anything that we really need to deal with. If he actually believes any of the things that he's saying, it's utter madness. More likely, it's a combination of madness or filtered through dementia and just massive, constant lying to the American people. Cenk, he used to say that thing, they're not coming for me, they're coming for you, and I'm in the way. Donald Trump isn't lying to the representatives and like insulting the media. He's lying and insulting you. The media is just in the way. Like he doesn't give a damn about what even Republicans think about all this. And he has been super clear about that. He has said specifically when it comes to ground troops, and we'll get into more of that, it's not a polling thing, I'll do what I need to do. And so the idea that Chip Roy would even pretend to think that Donald Trump is gonna answer their questions and really explain himself and his thinking is absurd.
Yeah,
Any thoughts?
Yeah, I'm gonna get to what's actually gonna happen in a second, but first to your point about Trump. Look, everybody knows that's been watching this show for any amount of time that I think that there are two different types of Trump voters. There's the guys who are still in the cult and self-identify as MAGA to this day. And those guys are what Limbaugh used to call the ditto heads, right? So Trump says something, I'm anti-war, yeah, anti-war. He says, I'm pro-war, like they didn't even notice, right? And then there's a whole heap of Trump voters, including a lot of independents that voted for him, that are like, no. Like for example, right now among non-MAGA Trump voters, he's already down to 61% approval on this war. It should be lower, but he's lost about 40% of them already. That's a big number. Like that's plenty enough to swing any election, right? So for those guys, they're getting tired of the lies, right? And the lies are so obvious because John, the critical part is seeing it for the first time. Once you see it once, you can't unsee it. Then you begin to see it over and over and over again. So for example, he says, to your point, I need $200 billion is the most important thing. Oh my God, we got to do it. And we're sending in for 3 different aircraft carriers, which I'll tell you about in a second. And then he turns around and says, we're almost done. Well, which one is it? Later in the show, he tells the oil companies, I need you to drill, baby, drill because your oil prices are so high. And then he turns around and says, don't worry, everybody, the war's gonna be over any second now and oil prices will go down. And the oil executives are like, well, which one is it? Because if oil prices are gonna go down, I don't wanna drill, right? And it's nonstop, it's over and over on every single issue. This, then this, this, then this, completely opposite. And now that a lot of those voters have seen that, They're like, oh my God, this guy won't stop lying. He's constantly saying the exact opposite of what he said just a minute ago, right? And yes, it's good to have you guys in the reality-based world now. And look, almost all the politicians are liars in different ways. So that's why it's not like I trust Boebert on everything else. But Boebert comes up with weirdo lies like I wrestled 3 guys and 2 bears at my bar with my bare hands and won. Okay, like, so don't even worry about what they're saying. Look at how they voted in the past, and that'll give you an indication of what they're gonna do in the future, right? And almost all of these politicians huff and puff, including the Democrats, by the way. And at the end of the day, they always find enough votes for 2 things. One is war, the other is Israel. So this thing is locked in. It's already over. The rest is just theater. So what I mean by that is, do I know for sure that the number is going to be $200 billion? No, it's possible they negotiate, etc. But if they're asking for 200, I'd be shocked if it was under 100. So over $100 billion, and maybe the entire 200, maybe even more by then. I've literally seen that happen half a dozen times, right?
Yeah.
And they'll get it, and all the huffing and puffing is meant to lie to all of you, whether you're Republican or Democrat, when it's already baked in. So here's a guarantee I'll make, John. Because Boebert, Massey, and maybe some others defect, they're gonna need Democratic votes in the House. And I absolutely, positively guarantee you that they will get just as many votes as they need. Because the Democrats are giant liars. They're gonna vote against Israel's war? There's no chance of that.
Yeah, well, and also I feel like the 200 is thrown out so that they can cut it to 170 and be like, oh, look, we're being responsible. When 1 billion extra is bullcrap. We shouldn't have spent the 30 that we already spent. We not only didn't vote for this, we voted against this. He is robbing us for every cent that he is wasting in murdering Iranian civilians. And I hate the idea that now it's about debating where the number should be. No, it's about where our military should be, not near Iran. We shouldn't be involved in literally any of this. And when I think about how much they fought over every bit of the Build Back Better bill. Oh, you can't put money into elder care. We don't have money for that. Meanwhile, they can spend on all of this. They had to cut all that Medicaid funding so that they could do Donald Trump's tax cut bill because we got to be fiscally responsible, but we can also jack up the military budget by $500 billion. We could also spend $200 extra billion setting fire to Iranian oil fields and everything. It is infuriating the way money is discussed and the double standard that we have in this country.
Yeah, John, I just want to add one quick thing to that. Because you mentioned the things Gavin Newsom listed, also Ro Khanna yesterday talking about. We could have 1,000 new trade schools. I mean, create millions of jobs in this country for that money. We can create free college education for everyone in the way that Bernie envisioned. Wouldn't that be amazing, free college? We said, no free college for Americans. Nope. We're not gonna feed our hungry. We're not gonna help our sick. And we're not gonna give you any hope for the future. We're gonna all spend it all on war. And right now, the USS Lincoln is already in the Gulf, and they had USS Gerald Ford in there. But I don't know if you guys know this, it caught on fire, and we couldn't put it out for 30 hours. So they had to go and dock it in Crete and try to fix it in the middle of the war. Because when you do a war, weird things happen, and planes crash and ships catch on fire. So now they're sending in the Boxer from California, USS Boxer, and USS Tripoli from Japan. And tons of ground troops are on the way. All of this costs a ton of money. The F-35 that got hit yesterday cost $100 million. All of this is piling up. So it is a mountain of money, endless pit of money for war, but for actually helping Americans, golly gee, they just can't seem to find their wallet. Do you see how they betray us and how our representatives are not at all our representatives? They're the representatives of the donor class. They're literally sent into Congress to rob us of our money and funnel it over to their donors.
Yeah. Well, do you just want to briefly hear the other theory for how we could pay for this?
Sure.
Representative? Okay, let's mix things up. Republican Representative Scott Perry has a novel idea of how we could pay for the insane and growing amount of money we're spending on this war. Take a look.
I think most members, like I said, it doesn't matter if you're Republican or Democrat. We represent our districts, and we understand. We support I support the president. I support this action, but at the same time, we've got to pay for this. So how is this going to be dealt with? I would actually like to see Iran pay for this, whether it's 20 billion or 200 billion, whatever it is. Look, they've been at war with us for 47 years, and it's finally being ended by the president, which is awesome. But it comes at a cost, and they have resources. They have been siphoning those resources away from their population for those 4.5, 5 decades, and certainly they could pay that bill pretty quickly once things get up and running, and the Ayatollah is no longer in charge. So I think that's an option that we need to pursue as well.
I realize that I'm the dork who, watches movies and reads books about like elves and dwarves and stuff, but that gentleman right there lives in a goddamn fantasy land, because Donald Trump didn't start a war, he ended a war that's been going on for 47 years. And also, it's not the American taxpayer that's gonna end up paying trillions of dollars on this war. No, the Iranians are gonna do it. Yeah, once again, we're building the wall and Mexico is gonna pay for it. And they can say that with a straight face on the news, Cenk.
Yeah, all right, let me break it down, because this is hilarious. Really, even if you're like deep core MAGA, you believe that crap? Come on, please tell me you're not that ignorant, let's put it kindly. Okay, so after we invaded Afghanistan, did Afghanistan pay for the war? After we did Vietnam pay for the war? Okay, this is absurd. Nobody pays for a war against themselves. What kind of lunacy is that, right? I have to bother saying these things? Okay, but hold on, I'm gonna give you more about Iran in a second. But I wanted to also address this talking point about the 47 years. Guys, this is a talking point that came out in unison in politics and in media. The reason for that talking point is this war was obviously just for Israel, and we couldn't find an American interest. We'd already destroyed their nuclear facilities. On the first day, we killed their top 49 leaders, so the regime was gone in a sense, right? And we've taken out, as Trump keeps bragging about, their Navy, their Air Force, all their boats, etc. So why are we even there? That's why they had to come up with a talking point of, oh, remember Iran attacked America 47 years ago. And that's why we now, 47 years ago? We did a coup against Iran back in 1953. So what is that, 47, 26, that's 73 years ago. Did we start the war 73 years ago? This is insane. Math. And guys, when you see them all saying the same point, Ben Ferguson said it on Piers Morgan when I was debating him, but it doesn't matter. Go online and you will see all of the Israeli assets saying the same exact line about, oh, they've been at war with us for 47 years. That's an Israeli talking point given to the politicians and the media by their Israeli handlers to make it appear like America has an interest in this war. Okay, that's how this game is played. This brother just took it to an absurd level. But think through what he's saying. If there was any truth to it at all, it would be even worse. Because John, what he'd be saying then to what we would collectively be saying to Iran then is, you better fight us tooth and nail. Because if you lose this war, not only are we gonna get rid of the regime, and some of you like the regime, a lot of you hate the regime, so you're kind of mixed on that. Not only are we gonna drop bombs all over Iran and kill your children, which they're definitely against, and not only are we gonna hand your country over to a puppet dictator who's gonna report into Israel, but if you already didn't like that or hated it with all of your might, after the war, we're gonna rob you blind and make you give us all of your money to pay for the war where we bombed your children. Well, then what are the Iranians going to do? They're gonna fight to the last man, right? So the only thing worse than this being a preposterous lie is if it was true.
Exactly. We live in such insane and insulting times. Well, we should probably take our first break though, because there's a couple of other aspects of this war that we definitely want to get to. And so with that, we'll be back after this.
Cenk Uyghur has the IQ of a tadpole.
Weenie.
Wow, look at this. So Konstantin Kaviris, American hero as usual, sends in $56.56. Because I'm turning 56, and he says an early happy birthday to Cenk Uyghur, and then others started doing it. Konstantin, you're way too good to us, brother. I love you for that. Thank you, and all of you that followed, Eclectic and the others. I'll get to your comments in a sec. He also wrote an RIP Chuck Norris. When Chuck Norris gets reincarnated, he comes back again as Chuck Norris. You're right about that too, Constantine. Eclectic writes in, happy early birthday, Cenk. Fun fact for your 56th birthday, there were 56 signatories to the Declaration of Independence. At least that's what Wikipedia says, so it must be true. Hope you can take it easy this weekend. Thank you for all that you do. Thank you for saying that. I did not know that. I do love that. And on our 250th birthday, we need another independence, but this time from another country. Rose Orozco says, there's your healthcare, my fellow Americans. Up in the sky, aiming towards Iran. Happy birthday, Cenk. We love you so much. Rose, you as well. And she also said happy Friday, TYT family. Barbara, thank you for saying happy birthday. Let's go to YouTube members. Spanish Jose says happy 25th birthday, Cenk. Thank you guys. Nick T says, John and Brett had me cracking up on TDR today. Needed that, thanks guys. You must have a low bar, but that's okay. Just playing, I'm playing. Wyatt Outlaw said, Cenk is the only reason to watch Piers Morgan. He absolutely owns on the show. Well, thank you for saying that. And seriously, I love when John and Brett and John and Jordan are on Damage Report. They have so much fun and I love it. All right, we'll be back. Cenk, you've got to stop working out. All right, back on TYT, Cenk and John with you guys. Also, CM Dr. Guerrero Marinero sent in 5 Young Turks memberships on YouTube. We appreciate you so much, brother. And then right back at you guys. Remember, you can save a ton of money if you switch to Noble Mobile. My cell phone service has been perfect. It's on the T-Mobile service, so which now, according to T-Mobile, is ranked #1 actually. And nothing else on your phone changes. The only thing that changes is the bill, which is much, much lower. Can't be above 50, usually in the 30s. It's been in the 30s every month for me because they give you money back if you don't use your data. Plus you get $40 off your first month if you act now. So tyt.com/switch, tyt.com/switch. John, what's next?
Okay, let's jump into more war. Boots on the ground in Iran is seeming less theoretical, perhaps more inevitable with every passing day. We found out earlier today that Pentagon officials have apparently made detailed preparations for deploying US ground forces into Iran, according to multiple sources. Now, bear in mind, Donald Trump is still sort of denying it. He told reporters in the Oval Office yesterday, no, I'm not putting troops anywhere. But then he added, if I were, I certainly wouldn't tell you. I mean, they're just the media. They're just tasked with making sure that the American people know what the hell is going on. Why would he tell them? And bear in mind that while he's appearing to make you think that perhaps we're not going to do that, he loves saying we're not going to do something right before doing it so that he can surprise the Iranians as if they're not preparing for this anyway. And earlier today, when he was asked about a ceasefire with Iran, he said, why would I need a ceasefire when we're obliterating the enemy? So I don't know, it doesn't seem like it's done anytime soon. So let's jump more into the reporting about the preparations that are ongoing and what form it might come in. The military has apparently held meetings to prepare how to handle the possible detention of Iranian soldiers and paramilitary operatives if the president decides to put American boots on the ground, including where the Iranians would be sent. Now, bear in mind, Pete Hegseth, of course, said there would be no quarter. So if we take him at his word, there will be no prisoners. We will put them to death. Now, I imagine that Pete Hegseth is a bloviating moron and doesn't know what that word means. I hope we won't commit even more war crimes, but that remains to be seen. And we do know, we've been giving you updates on the different ships that are moving into the region. We do know that they're preparing to deploy elements of the 82nd Airborne into the Middle East region. 3 warships and about 2,200 Marines departed California earlier this week. That was the second such Marine unit sent since the war began, and it could be a few weeks before it's in place. The first was sent from the Pacific, and that one is still making its way into the region. Now, that said, were we to put boots on the ground, what form could it come in? What a lot of people think is the most likely is that they would take over Karg Island to potentially sort of like, I guess, ransom it back to the Iranians in exchange for opening up the Strait of Hormuz. Of course, it's not far from the Iranian mainland, meaning that any soldiers that would be dispatched there, and it would have to be many to take that island, they would be fully in range of drones and missiles and all of that. They would be sort of sitting ducks. So that's definitely a concern. Now that said, it could also come in the form of special, forces going into the Iranian mainland to try to recover nuclear material. We've heard about that. We've also heard, if you jump to graphic 8, they're preparing for everything. Could be Karg Island. If he decides to have a coastal invasion, that's going to happen. But that decision hasn't been made. That's an anonymous senior Trump administration official floating the possibility of a coastal invasion. And now you might be wondering what that is. A coastal invasion of Iran is an invasion of Iran. That's what it is. It's Iraq all over again. Yippee-ki-yay, Cenk, what do you think?
Yeah, so we covered this yesterday where Brian Kilmeade was trying out a new Israeli talking point, which is, no, if you land on an island, that doesn't count as ground troops. Is that a thing? So attacking islands don't count. The Japanese are thinking, hey, what? We attacked Hawaii. Why did that count? It was an island. Okay. Yeah. So, all right, I don't know if they're being intentionally hilarious, but honestly, the Fox News audience couldn't figure out how to tie their shoes. So they probably believe it. They're like, oh yeah, if you land on the ground, but it's an island, of course it doesn't count. Like we can invade Australia anytime we want, and then even if we use ground troops, we wouldn't be using ground troops because of Australia is not. This is so asinine. I mean, but honestly, wait. You're about to find out the most asinine thing, which is what Donald Trump just said. I just saw it, breaking news. I'm gonna share that with you guys in a second. But you know that, and there's a prediction coming here, guys. This is, I'm gonna give you this is a guaranteed prediction in a minute. But when Trump says, now if I was gonna do it, I wouldn't tell you. That's already 100% of the time that he has said that, he has gone on to do that thing, okay?
Yeah.
And he always thinks that it's clever. It's not at all clever. When you say, if I was gonna do it, I wouldn't tell you. We all already know that that means you're gonna do it. That's what you did every single time. He's so dumb, but wait. It's not even close. Because wait till you hear what he just said. He said the Strait of Hormuz is not gonna be a problem. Why? Because, quote, it will open itself. What on God's green earth are you talking about? And he said, once Iran stops clogging it up, it'll open. Of course, that's the whole point. We're at war with Iran and Iran has clogged it up. And so, what do you mean? What is that? What language are you speaking, you moron? But wait, every layer gets worse. Then he said, no. Like, I mean, it'll open itself up, and once Iran lets us through, yeah, when you stop attacking them. And then he said, but it's okay, we still need our NATO allies, and we need China to help us open it up. Wait a minute, we're letting the Chinese ships go through. They're partners with Iran, and because we don't want oil prices to skyrocket more, Trump made the decision earlier, that's okay, we're not gonna bomb the Chinese ships as they go through, or ships going to China to give them oil. So why would China join you in opening up the strait when the strait's already open for China? Like, he has no idea what's going on. He's making Biden look young and dynamic. Like, this is like, I don't know if it's dementia or just Trump being as stupid as he's always been. But the bounds of reason, we have like their president. Well, first of all, their leader's dead, right? The first leader of the Ayatollah, let's keep it real on that. So guys, that's the other thing. Please don't get tricked by this, you know this, right? Just because we can decimate their facilities on the ground and we can decimate them from the sky and in the water, doesn't mean that we've won. You have to land your troops in to get rid of the regime or to get the enriched uranium or to stop their missile attacks from the Strait of Hormuz because the ground is so close to the Strait of Hormuz, etc. So like him constantly saying, and in fact, they asked him about it. They said, you said yesterday, quote, the war was won. So then what are we still doing there? And he says, quote, we knocked out their Navy, their Air Force, anti-aircraft, we're roaming free. All they're doing is clogging up the strait. But from a military standpoint, they're finished. Well, if they're clogging up the strait, then they're obviously not finished from a military standpoint. And second of all, if they're finished from a military standpoint, fantastic. Let's come home. Everybody's a winner, right? Our president is a buffoon, and he's like #1 humiliating us for the rest of the world. They're like, the mighty America picked this moron who's like, the strait will open itself. And the Chinese that are already going through will randomly join the war on our side. Like, he's on a different freaking planet. But much more importantly, guys, than our reputation in the world, which is already like pulverized. And that has real ramifications, economic ramifications, because people are starting to make trade deals around us. But the practical consequences of this war is when you have a president who is detached from reality and his IQ is, in the teens, you're not gonna make the right decisions. That's why we're not making any of the right decisions now, including going in the first place and including the fact that we're about to send in ground troops. So anytime that you think it's as bad as it gets with Donald Trump, it's always gonna get worse, John.
Ugh. Well, we focused quite a bit on him. Why don't we focus a bit on the attempt to control the narrative? Let's jump to this.
Okay, hold on, wait.
Oh, sorry.
Before we do that, actually, before we move off the story, let me give you the prediction, okay?
Oh, okay, let's do it.
All right, so guys, I'll end on a guaranteed prediction. We are putting the ground troops in. So end of the debate. You'll see nonsense debate on TV and all over media going forward, but that's just theater. It's already baked in, right? So we've already sent the 2,500 troops, 82nd Airborne. Now we're sending another 2,200 from the USS Boxer leaving California. Now it was supposed to leave 3 weeks later. They're sending it in a panic because they're gonna put ground troops in. You don't need to move up the schedule by 3 weeks if they're not gonna go on the ground, if they're not already going to go in that direction, right? So, and I've never seen them move all of these ships and all these troops into place and go, never mind. In like 25, 30 years of covering news and politics, I've never seen that. Whether it's Russia or us, when we amass troops somewhere, we send them in, right? Now we're also sending in the USS Tripoli from Japan. That's within days of arriving, and it's possible that about 2,500 from there and the 2,500 that's already there might make landfall, and then the Boxer would back them up. On top of that, Axios and CBS News, both with, let's just say, excellent sourcing in Israel. In other words, kind of are Israel, or is saying, ground troops are on their way. So that means the Israelis have already ordered us to send in ground troops and the ships are already on their way. So they're not gonna bring them all the way there and then turn around. We're definitely sending in ground troops. Write it down in stone, it's over. The rest is just theater to make you think that there's a question left when there is no question. They've already made the decision and the disaster is on its way.
I think that you're right. I mean, your point about what happens when they send them over is, I think, indisputable. Venezuela, they didn't send over the Armada for nothing. Iran, they didn't send over the Armada for nothing. They ended up using it. The massing of troops on the border with Ukraine, of Russia, where they were like, this is just military exercise or whatever. No, they didn't waste all that money for nothing. They did it to use it. And I think it seems like inevitably it's going to be a massive disaster, but Donald Trump thinks he can do no wrong when it comes to the military. I think he has been convinced, whether by Stephen Miller or Hegseth or Benjamin Netanyahu, Lindsey Graham, it's gonna be great, no soldiers are gonna die. And I think some of them, like this is my read on Stephen Miller, I think they think if some soldiers start getting blown up, we lose 100, we lose 1,000, then the American people will fall in line because now Iran has killed our fighting men. That's my fear, the dark, bloody calculus that I think some of them are doing.
Yeah, and John, I'll add one last thing to that. But there's also a second part of it. If you don't fall in line, then the arrest will begin. And they'll start to call you enemy of the state. You're working with aiding and abetting the enemy. They're already kind of road testing this with Tucker Carlson and Joe Kent, and that they'll amp those up a lot. Now their problem is, and why it was so important to get Trump voter allies that are independents and some portion of MAGA, is because if they have all the Trump voters locked up, that was the majority in the 2024 election, then they'll be able to arrest anyone they want and get away with it, okay? And lock down and bring the surveillance state here at home. But if enough of the Trump voters rebel and join the rebellion that already exists with independents and Democrats, then they won't have enough political power to be able to pull that off. That's why the political war at home is so important, because it's both about defending our way of life and actually defending the homeland and our Constitution, but it also can help to expedite ending this war so less Americans die.
Yeah. Well, perhaps we'll see. We should probably take our second break actually before we transition to a little bit more news. We'll be back in a few.
Cenk Uyghur has the morality of a cockroach.
I buried those cockroaches!
All right, again, super chat. Kobe Bryant, very nice of you, says we need more Cenks, Johns, and Annas, please. And you know, shouldn't the entire media be made up of truth tellers? It's kind of funny that like we need a couple of more truth tellers in the media because the rest of them are all not telling the truth. 23 Dell says, isn't this war how Mad Max began? Lady AF, thank you for the donation for my birthday. You're amazing. Barbara, you as well. Christina Lisa Brown says to the warrior for the week, the mic for the mute, a provider of hope and a fighter for truth. Today the world celebrates the birth and love of you. Oh, that's for me. Wow, thank you, Christina. You're amazing. The mic for the mute. So like a voice for the voiceless. That's amazing. That's a beautiful compliment. Okay, and now Steffi 31 UK says on YouTube member section, happy birthday and hope that you can find the means to switch off all the endless troubles on all your plates with all the wars and death to enjoy and laugh and feel joy on this special day. Well, we don't do Operation Joy for nothing. Okay, so yes, tomorrow I'm gonna try to do as little work as possible, hang out with the kids, and have a great time. Thank you, though. Spanish Jose TV says, happy 25th birthday, Cenk. We're about the God's ears, brother, but we might have gotten a little past that. Catch a butterfly, thank you for the birthday wishes. TYT members, Nerd Ferguson says, we're winding down the operations. Remembers everyone focusing on Epstein files. Send more ground troops. Buddy X Laconda says, the goddamn audacity. As a white man that has never left this country, I'll speak for Iran in this case. Go after yourself, buddy, about Perry. I'd be worried about getting my ass blown out, right? That is a weird way of saying it. All right, guys, Cenk and John with you guys on Young Turks tonight. I want to just read one quick comment from one of our members on TYT.com. Gunny Dragon said, agree, Cenk, from a retired Marine's perspective, you don't send 2 Marine expeditionary units if you're not landing. Okay, totally right. And thank you for that perspective. Cheesy Finger 79, which is a hilarious handle. Thank you for gifting a membership on YouTube. We appreciate you. And oh, by the way, guys, one more thing. We want to know where you are, if you're a Young Turks viewer or you're a Young Turks member, both of you, members and non-members, where you stand politically. So it takes about 15 seconds, 3 easy questions, so that we could be better connected to you guys. TYT.com/you. TYT.com/YOU. Tell us where you are in the political spectrum and help us out by knowing where our audience is. Okay, John.
Okay, let's jump into some more. Karoline Leavitt just got caught blatantly lying about the popularity of the Iran war, which we've been tracking here on the program in the network for some time. It is a wildly unpopular war, but it is her job to lie, Cenk. So what are your 2 cents?
Yeah, so the lie doesn't surprise me at all, but the reaction does. So there's a whole new world out there now where the 2 sides are not where they used to be, and lying easily in the media is not what it used to be. And this is an excellent example of that. So give them the facts, John.
Yeah, there's some interesting stuff here, and we're gonna go across a bunch of polls, some of which, if you cherry pick incredibly selectively, can buttress what Leavitt is saying, which is Americans agree that Operation Epic Fury is an overwhelming success. And for some reason, she capitalized all of those words. So she is pretending that we're all in support of this. So everybody who thinks this is a bad idea, shut the hell up and get in line. But we know that that is not the case. Now, she went on to say, despite a relentless campaign by the fake news and the radical left to manufacture tales of division to distract from this historic triumph, it is clear the American people and President Trump's base stand firmly behind our warriors and their commander-in-chief as we accomplish the mission. So polls do show that Republicans, and especially those who self-identify as MAGA Republicans, who still do that now, by the way, support the Iran war thus far. And we can talk about what that means, but the White House noted this. So 94% of MAGA Americans, 84% of Republicans overall support the operation, which importantly is not the same as saying they support an all-out never-ending war with Iran, or that they support hundreds of billions of dollars being spent, or that they support ground troops, which we know that they don't. It's a very abstract way of implying that they're okay with, they're just down for whatever, when it is clear that they are not. NBC News put the number at 90% of MAGA, 80% of Republicans overall. CNN had 88% of MAGA, 77% of Republicans overall. So varying levels of support amongst MAGA and Republicans, but that's at least fairly clear. They also cited the Washington Post saying a plurality of Americans back US action against Iran, that's not overwhelming support, not when you're using the word plurality. Rasmussen says 61% say that the operation has been successful. Fox News says more than 6 in 10 Americans view the Iranian regime as a real national security threat. Now here's the interesting thing though. So if you look at The Economist and YouGov, they have not just done a poll, they've been tracking over time what people think about this. So do you approve or disapprove of the way that Donald Trump is handling the situation in Iran? So we have data points for the last week and then basically the first week of the conflict. And you'll note that they started off at 39% approval, which is very low for a military adventure. We've talked about that historically. It's lower than basically any other war is at the outset. And you were just told that as victories mount, the approval rating is going higher, and yet it looks like it actually shed 3 percentage points of approval as we entered into the third week of this war. Disapproval is ticking up as well. So it seems like actually the opposite is the case. And overall, only 36% of Americans now approve of how Trump is handling the war. And that's before ground troops, Cenk. That's before we enter the third month or the 200th billion. So I imagine that they, on day one, that was the high watermark of approval for that. I could be proven wrong, but I think the numbers show a very different picture than what Karoline Leavitt is implying.
Yeah, so first of all, she got stone cold busted. There was a community note on it. And a lot of times these days, the anti-war coalition online, which you'll see show up in some of the polling, and in some of the polling, they are not as large a number as I would expect, right? But they are online, and when these statements are put online, left, right, and middle attack, and because it's a real anti-war coalition, and they start giving the numbers. Now, in the old days, guys, all we had was television. So Young Turks is the oldest show in internet history, and we were around before the Iraq War. And during the Iraq War, like a press secretary like Karoline Leavitt would put out a statement, and me and Ben Mankiewicz would scream, and Amy Goodman would scream from the corner of the internet, like, it's not true, and nobody would hear us, right? And there was not this swarm of actual American citizens fact checking on the spot. So if you're used to this world, you have no idea how bad the old world was, where you couldn't get the truth out if your life depended on it, right? It was just a monopoly and a wall of propaganda from mainstream media and our politicians. So that's some good news there in terms of the reaction to this. Now, in terms of the polling, now we've talked a lot about this throughout all these years, but how a question is asked is enormously important. And so they have tested different polls with different wording. And the more conservative polling outfits like Rasmussen will play around with the words like, now if you thought that Iran was an imminent threat and they have nuclear weapons and they were about to attack us, are you in favor of this war? Yeah, but none of those things are true, right? So yeah, if I thought Iran was gonna come and burn my house down, I would be in favor of it. But Iran isn't going to burn my house down. You're lying with that question, right? So then it's our job to look at all those numbers and all those questions and how they framed it and get to a number that I think is the one that is the most accurate in my opinion. And out of all of these, I think Reuters Ipsos is probably the most accurate. Graphic 7 here. Some 37% of Americans overall approve of the war and 59% disapprove. So it could be that it's a couple points higher on either end, but overall, that's where the most accurate polling seems to be landing. And when you first, there was a poll before the war that was at 21% approval, right? But whenever you start a war, people rally around the flag and it becomes more popular. Then as the war starts going poorly, it becomes less and less popular as it goes. For it to peak around 37 to 41% in the beginning is a disastrous number. You gotta know the context of how this polling plays out over the course of a war. It's at a moment like this, it's supposed to be at its highest level of support. And at 37%, it just, I've never seen a war that unpopular in the beginning.
Yeah. And we should note that the only thing less popular than the war overall is what they are, and we've now done the prediction, what they're going to do next, which is a large scale invasion. We can debate how large scale, but when you go to graphic 8, you'll see a level of approval for large scale invasion or only special forces, which is a talking point that you use when you want to start the process of getting troops on the ground, but you want to make it seem like something else is going on. Well, this is not like 7% support a large scale invasion of all Americans. That is like the lowest level of approval I think I've ever seen for anything on a poll. 7%. Only 14% of Republicans actually support that. But that's what they appear to be getting ready for. This is not gonna be 20 Army Rangers sneaking into a nuclear facility to take back the fuel or whatever. This is gonna be thousands and thousands of Marines. And so they are planning right now to do something that is less approved of than maybe anything else in politics, Cenk. And they don't care. Like if we go to graphic 10, Trump says, I think that the polling is very good. He's lying about that, or he doesn't know, or both. But I don't care about polling. It's not a question of polling. You cannot let Iran, who's a nation that has been run by crazy people, same, have a nuclear weapon. I think people are very impressed with what is happening, actually. I think it's a silent, if you did a real poll, the silent poll, and it's like a silent majority. Yeah, but it's not. Actually, it's people are very happy to tell you that they don't support this, and the majority is against doing anything like this. But importantly, he doesn't care. He has no interest in democracy whatsoever.
Yeah. So last two things on it. Number one, if you are opposed to this war and you don't want anyone funding this nonsense and funding the ground troops, sign our pledge, tyt.com/United Against War. And we'll put the link in the description box below so you can get there easily. And that's enormously bipartisan, nonpartisan. And I'm actually gonna do a Zoom call with all the people who signed the pledge at some point. So unitedagainstwar.com just directly brings you there as well. And we'll talk through how to fight back against this war. But in terms of the public polling and all this, John is absolutely right. So again, the Trump voters are split. There's the guys who still call themselves MAGA. They're sticking with him and they still believe everything he says. There's the guys who are former MAGA, independents, some other Republicans, and those guys are already very wary of this war. Only 61% of them support it, so about 4 out of 10 of those guys are already off the Trump bandwagon on this war. But part of the reason why the core MAGA guys are still with Trump is because Trump said that he wouldn't put in any ground troops, and they believe him. And in fact, all of the people who support the war are still at this late date saying that they're not gonna put ground troops in. Now, of course, they're gonna switch and they're gonna say, well, we didn't want to, but as it turns out, we have no choice and we had to put the ground troops in. When they do that, not all of MAGA, I mean, there's no question that a big number, at least 25, 30% of his voters, he could do ground troops inside their homes and they'd be like, yes, that's what I voted for, right? But a huge number, because it's already in the polling, when he goes to ground troops, they're gonna go, oh, no, we said no ground troops. That one was crystal clear. And I just heard you say 200 times no ground troops. So that's when the bottom falls out. And let's see if that's right.
Yeah.
All right, we got time for one quick one, because this one really is quick. All right.
Okay. Is it? Okay, well, let's jump into it.
Why did you introduce him to Peter Thiel and Vitaly Churkin? What were your dealings with Jeffrey Epstein?
Well, I didn't introduce him to those people, but all of us dealt with Jeffrey Epstein in the 80s as a business person. He was bigger than life. It was a 30-year story of this that I think most of us actually thought that he had built his wealth and his prowess over his international relations with Israel.
That's our ambassador to Turkey, the US ambassador. And he just admitted, oh yeah, we all knew that Epstein was connected to Israel and that's how he built his wealth and power. Did we all know that? Can you please tell traditional news media that's all still pretending that Epstein has nothing to do with Israel? John, wasn't that a startling admission?
Yeah, that seems like it'd be pretty big news, especially when it's like, it's not a person that just, in some circles, he has some influence or whatever, or 20 years ago he had some power, but like, he's still very powerful and well connected. He's a current ambassador, a billionaire, Donald Trump's favorite type of people, former CEO of Colony Capital, a big private equity firm. Like, this is a person who probably knows what he's talking about there, Cenk. And yeah, I don't see this getting talked about a lot. Are you surprised by that?
So look, so Tom Barak is one of Trump's favorites. That's why he's the ambassador to a very important ally. He gave a speech at, I think, both conventions for Donald Trump, maybe all three. I was thinking of 2016 and 2024, but I've seen him speak at Republican conventions. And so very well connected within Trump circles, within Republican circles, within billionaire circles. And he says on behalf of all of those people, oh no, we all knew Epstein was Israel, right? And you just saw him say, if I say the same thing that Tom Barak said, almost everyone in mainstream media would call me an anti-Semite. But wait, when Tom Barak said it, if I just quote him saying it, I bet I still get called an anti-Semite. So look, there's a lot of reasons why the national media is filled wall to wall with liars. They all lie to you. There isn't a single honest political reporter in mainstream media. They all pretend that the donor money doesn't have any influence on the politicians, and that the politicians are honorable people who, I mean, they take calls from the donors. They take calls, but it's a tiny little influence. They have real debates, and they have this. They play along in the theater. They're the directors of the theater. They're all giant liars. So yeah. Is Epstein connected to Israel? Well, you just heard it from the horse's mouth. One of the guys who used to, know him and know everyone in his circle. Of course, besides which we've already shown it 1,000 times in all the reporting from Drop Site News and all the emails. I'll go through the list in a sec, but yes, there's no question that Epstein is Israel.
Yeah, and very importantly, when you say that he used to know him, let's talk about what used to means in that context. So Michael Wolff says their relationship goes back to the 80s, which is seemingly what he says in the video too, which, by the way, I'm not super familiar with this guy. Brett is telling me his last name is Barrick. I don't know. But in any event, so they knew each other in the 80s, presumably 90s, but then into the aughts. In September 2009, Barrick wrote the following to Epstein: "Thinking about you, hope you are good and life is calm again." He's using the U and R, like he's a preteen or something. This is after Epstein already had his first stay in prison for his sex crimes. This guy's still like, oh, I hope finally some of the stress is off. You must have been so bothered by the fact there were minimal consequences for your horrendous actions. And so that's a bit suspicious. It isn't just that they knew each other in the 80s or whatever. Like, you're contacting him afterward. Like, is this as bad as Steve Bannon trying to launder his relationship in 2019? No, it's not as bad as that, but it's still pretty bad at that point. And they had a whole lot of communications, including mutual visits to different properties or to meet up with each other, facilitating introductions with people like Peter Thiel, Ehud Barak, the UN ambassador from Russia, all getting joined up. An Indian billionaire was involved back in March 2017. I don't know which of these you want to go into like it's super in depth with, but that person was trying to use Epstein to get contacts with Jared Kushner, Steve Bannon, and Donald Trump in March 2017, which is fascinating considering that we are supposed to believe that Donald Trump for almost a decade at that point had nothing to do with Epstein. Now, we know from other emails that Donald Trump himself said that Epstein was not actually ever banned from the club, but evidently he was still a go-between as recently as the first year of Donald Trump's first term. So there's a lot of interesting and suspicious stuff in this, Cenk.
Yeah, I'll go as quickly as I can because there's so many connections to Israel. But let's go to 1989, graphic 5 here. In '89, Epstein accompanied Wayne Owens, a Democratic congressman from Utah, on a trip to the Middle East to explore ways to promote business ties between Israel and its neighbors. Oh, interesting. Dan Gordon, a screenwriter who was part of the entourage, says he warned Owens that Epstein was showing disrespect by his slovenly attire in meetings with Israel's Benjamin Netanyahu and Shimon Peres and Saudi Arabia's crown prince at the time, the types of connections that Epstein would cultivate in the years ahead. So he is arranging deals for Israel with the Saudis, with American congressmen. He can get Benjamin Netanyahu to any meeting he wants, not just then, but later with JP Morgan Chase. He almost orders around Israeli prime ministers and arranges meetings with Vladimir Putin and Israelis, Mongolia and Israel. In fact, let me read you real quick. Epstein's connections to the Israeli government from Dropsite News. Epstein helped negotiate a security agreement between Israel and Mongolia, arranged a meeting between Ehud Barak, former prime minister of Israel, and Vladimir Putin in 2013. He helped establish a security meeting between Israel and the Ivory Coast in 2014. He repeatedly hosted an Israeli spy at his Manhattan residency between 2013 and 16. Epstein attempted to procure investments for Israeli cyber weapon startups. I'm pretty sure you work for the government that you get cyber weapons for. He helped Alan Dershowitz attack the authors of the Israeli lobby, exerted control over the Wexner Foundation, which funded pro-Israel causes. It's connected to key figures in the Iran-Contra scandal, and he was working apparently with Israeli intelligence at the time and working with our CIA back in the 1980s. Assisted in developing the Leviathan oil field, which is just open. Pitched an investor from UAE on the Israeli cybersecurity firm. Connected an ally of Indian Prime Minister Modi to Ehud Barak, and the list goes on and on. But yet, after all of this, our media goes, what connections to Israel? We don't see any. And if you report facts about that, we'll call you a terrorist. And if you think I'm doing hyperbole, Jake Tapper literally reposted someone saying that Dropsite News was terror propaganda. Outrageous. These are all verified emails from Jeffrey Epstein and Ehud Barak and others. So instead of CNN trying to verify these amazing claims that prove exactly who Jeffrey Epstein was working for, they never discuss it, never prove it or disprove it, but smear anyone involved in showing you things. And my guess is that they'll look at that Tom Barrack video we just showed you earlier and go, him saying it is not the problem, you showing the video is the problem. See, because John, they're not in the job of covering the news, they're in the job of covering up the news.
Certainly what it looks like.
Yeah, all right. Everybody check out Damage Report, 1 o'clock Eastern, Monday through Friday. Fantastic show. When we come back, a guy who's often on that program, Jordan Ewell, and we've got a lot of stories for you guys, including the Democrats burying how much supporting Israel hurt Kamala Harris, and how the Air Force is getting taken over by Christian nationalists. Yay. We'll be back. At TYT, our mission is to boldly pursue truth, challenge the establishment, and drive positive change. At a time when corporate capture of our media, our government, and our politics is nearly absolute, everyday working people need a champion to fight for them and to push back against the powerful interests that threaten our democracy itself. At TYT, we're proudly progressive and call out corruption and duplicity wherever we see it, from Republicans, Democrats, or anyone else. And unlike mainstream news media outlets, we're not beholden to corporate advertisers, to defense contractors, to Wall Street, or to Big Pharma. We only have to answer to our audience, and for nearly 2 decades, we've accomplished that by delivering honest, timely, and insightful perspectives on the day's news without fear or favor or concern for whose toes we might step on or which powerful elites we might offend. And while we're super serious about the news, we also manage to do it in a way that is fun and lighthearted. We can do this together and serve our audience, and yes, have fun doing it.
We talk about TYT Army being so strong. Usually they help us run our show. Now they're gonna help us run the country.
Like this. It's time that we reclaim democracy for the people.
We had a huge victory for Wolf-PAC.
When Lincoln said this was a country by, of, and for, he said of the people, not of corporations.
Our representatives don't represent us.
Whoa, democracy!
United!
We are!
We are!
Too strong!
There's thousands of volunteers, and you could be among them. When you get the power back, oh, that feels good. This is just the beginning. Knock, knock.
We're coming for them!
Wolf-PAC.com.
Mayweather will knock out Pacquiao. Floyd beats his wife.
Okay, I get it. You're progressive. You're looking for other progressive voices. Why? Because you want real progress to happen. You're tired of the why, regular stuff. You should be checking out the Young Turks. Why? Because who else is going to have Killer Mike talking about politics and social issues in his new TV show, Trigger Warning?
My dad wrote the story of his life. It's called The Original Young Turk. It's a book on shoptyt.com. Part of the story is how I became progressive. Now, he doesn't write about that per se, but in his life story, you see, oh my God, when a community helps one another, when the government also chips in and gives you free education, anything is possible. He went from an incredibly poor olive farmer to living the American dream.
I want Bart to choose the music for my funeral.
Can't wait.
Cenk, wealthy Muslim.
TYT, Cenk and Jordan Yule with you guys, and also the Uma Karam. Thank you for sending 20 memberships on YouTube to others in the community. You're beautiful for doing that, and we appreciate you. Jordan, what's our first story?
Take a look at this.
I'll close with scripture, drawing strength from Psalm 144. Blessed be the Lord, my rock, who trains my hands for war and my fingers for battle. May Almighty God continue to bless our troops in this fight. And again, to the American people, please pray for them every day, on bended knee, with your family, in your schools, in your churches, in the name of Jesus Christ.
Critics are beginning to worry that the military is taking more of an overt pro-Christian tone, especially when it comes to how they talk about this new conflict in Iran. And we've got some more examples, some more criticism. But Cenk, is this a shift that you have noticed?
Yeah, I mean, there's two different things happening. They're bringing in Christian nationalists, and the Air Force is kind of famous for that, done that for a long time. But there's also bringing in Christian Zionists so that they could help Israel. And you're gonna know the name of one of them for sure. She's quite famous. So Jordan, tell us about it.
A new investigation from The Intercept reveals the inner workings of the Defense Department to bring faith back into the military. It started with scrapping DEI programs, but the decision by the White House to appoint Erika Kirk to the US Air Force Academy Board of Visitors sparked major concern. When the White House announced Kirk's appointment to fill her late husband's seat on the board, it highlighted Charlie Kirk's, quote, bold Christian faith. Language critics say suggests religion was treated as a qualification for the role. For those unfamiliar with this board, the Board of Visitors is a congressionally mandated oversight body that reviews cadet life, curriculum, faculty, finances, and discipline at the Air Force Academy, which commissions roughly half of the service's new officers each year and plays a central role in shaping the culture of future military leadership. The board's findings and recommendations are delivered to the Secretary of the Air Force and forwarded to Hegseth and Congress. While the board cannot directly set policy, its oversight can shape Pentagon scrutiny and congressional funding decisions. According to minutes from a December 2025 meeting, steps were being taken to remove DEI elements from their admissions process and curriculum to be in compliance with Trump's Restoring America's Fighting Force initiative. And the only logical thing to replace this diversity with is conservative values, of course. Unlike earlier political appointments to the board, Kirk's selection reflects a specific political and religious alignment rather than expertise in military affairs, said retired Air Force Colonel Rachel Van Lingham, a graduate and former instructor at the Academy. She warned the move could encourage Academy officials who share those views to shape internal reporting or programs in ways that reinforce them. The BOV only makes recommendations to the Secretary of Defense through the Secretary of the Air Force, so its influence is typically quite indirect. However, given Secretary Hegseth's alignment with Kirk's group and connections to Ms. Kirk, the appointment could provide a backdoor directly to the Secretary of Defense, thus elevating its power. Annie Laurie Gaylor, the co-president of the Freedom from Religion Foundation, added to that, telling The Intercept, the appointment of Erika Kirk to the US Air Force Academy Board of Visitors goes hand in hand with Christian nationalist incursions into our armed forces, such as Pete Hegseth's actions and statements promoting the fervent brand of evangelical Christianity at the Pentagon. And this comes at a time where we're seeing the administration administering religious rhetoric into other factions of the military. Earlier this month, journalist and friend of the show, Jonathan Larson, reported Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has enshrined evangelical Christianity at the uppermost levels of the US military. airing monthly prayer meetings throughout the Pentagon. Last year, the Pentagon confirmed to me that Hegseth attends a weekly White House Bible study. It's led by a preacher who says God commands America to support Israel. We all know and love that Bible verse. Larson also reported that US troops were being told that the US-Israeli attack on Iran was in preparation for Armageddon and the return of Jesus. A combat unit commander told non-commissioned officers at a briefing Monday that the Iran war is part of God's plan and that President Donald Trump was anointed by Jesus to light the signal fire in Iran to cause Armageddon and mark his return to Earth, according to a complaint by a non-commissioned officer. And the non-commissioned officer wrote to the MRFF that their commander urged us to tell our troops that this was all part of God's divine plan. And he specifically referenced numerous citations out of the book of Revelation, referring to Armageddon and the imminent return of Jesus Christ. Now, MMRF is the Military Religious Freedom Foundation. And as The Intercept notes, the military's commitment should be to the Constitution, not partisan service. But the leadership's rhetoric shows a clear desire to change that. They aren't serious about developing officers of character at US Air Force Academy who can critically think and defend our nation most effectively through wise leadership. They're interested in turning the military into a Christian nationalist Praetorian Guard. Cenk.
Yeah, so Jonathan Larson, as you pointed out, has done some great reporting on this. He's our former managing editor. You can catch him on Substack now. And he's been reporting on this for a while. Jordan just told you about MMRF. That's Mikey Weinstein has done amazing work in trying to keep religion out of our military for decades on end. He's been on this program before too. And that's really important because you don't want any religion taking over your military. That's strictly forbidden in the Constitution. And it's easy to tell because if you said, hey, you know what, guys? Why don't we just throw all the religions in a little bowl and then we'll pick out one and that'll rule our military? Oh, Islam. I guess Islam's going to rule our military. Now people will go, no. Well, that's true of Christianity, Judaism, Hinduism. It's unconstitutional. It's un-American. That's not how we do things. There are two different things at play here. The long track record we're talking about that Mikey Weinstein's been fighting against and for so long of creeping Christian nationalism, especially in the Air Force. That is where it's most centered. And the Air Force is also in Colorado Springs, another hotbed for Christian nationalism. But there's the other factor, which is very much intermingled, which is Christian Zionism. So those are the guys who think that Armageddon is fantastic and that that's when Jesus is going to come back. Yes, almost everyone on earth will die, about 7 to 8 billion people. But they can't wait for that because that's just you guys. You'll all be murdered. But they're in this special group that are going to go vacuumed up into the sky. Now, it's one thing when a loon believes this and they're in their basement. It's another thing when they say US general or colonel that believes that and tells his troops, as Larson reported, about how we're going to go start Armageddon in the Middle East and bring back Jesus and God Almighty and all that. That is crazy talk, lunatic talk. And this whole praying for that the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, is doing publicly, it's outrageous, right? So imagine that we had, again, I give this as an example because it shows the absurdity of any religion ruling all of us. If it was Islam and we had Keith Ellison, who's Muslim, became the defense secretary, and he's like, all right, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, everybody, let us all do a prayer. I mean, come on, people are like, what? Right? So it isn't any different when it's Christianity because the Constitution doesn't say except for Christianity. It says no religion shall be established here in America. But to me, and when I see Hegseth, I feel like he's inches away from talking about Amalek, right? And that's what Netanyahu has done, and Amalek is in the Old Testament, commanding Israel to murder men, women, children, animals, every single thing that their opponents have, murder them all, right? Another reason why religion shouldn't rule us, because there's a lot of things in those books that will, that are from thousands of years ago, and not what we should be doing today. But finally, Jordan, Erika Kirk is an interesting person who is like kind of merging the Christian nationalism and Christian Zionism and pushing towards give Israel everything they want. More wars for Israel, more land for Israel, let Israel destroy the temple, etc. And so this is really on behalf of another country, not our country. So there is a religion kind of ruling us, but it ain't Christianity either. And Erika Kirk put out Charlie Kirk's last book after he died, and it's called Stop in the Name of God, Why Honoring the Sabbath Will Change Your Life. And she claims that Charlie followed the Jewish Sabbath because somehow that made him a better Christian, and that we should all follow the Jewish Sabbath, and that we should, of course, devote all of our time and energy and resources to helping beloved Israel. So I'm worried about the Christian nationalism that has been creeping in for all this time, but Jordan, I'm even more worried that this ain't about Christianity at all. This is a foreign government continuing to infiltrate our military to direct it towards helping them rather than us.
I mean, the proposition is laughable because it's diametrically opposed to their hyper-capitalist economic worldview. You want everything to shut down on a weekend, on one day? Good, okay, let's see it. Prove it. Tell us you want the gears of capitalism to come to a screeching halt one day every single week. Prove it. No, it's just the way they try to weaponize this stuff is so disingenuous. Like, I'm shocked that people still fall for it. But on the point about the military, like, we're seeing a pattern here. It is very, very alarming. And this is something a lot of people were concerned about during the first Trump term, but they are so much more overt now. I really worry about what this looks like in 6 months or a year or 2 years as these people continue to feel more and more emboldened. I mean, even just in the next few days, as we are on the precipice of potentially a ground invasion of Karg Island or some other land or territory or parcel of Iran, this is not looking good. And when you have religious fanatics at the helm, they're not guided by reason. They're guided by a delusion. And to pull from a comment from Pete Hegseth just earlier this week when talking about Iran to justify this additional $200 billion request for this war, he was pointing out, he's like, Iran is a government run by religious fanatics who spend more on weapons and militarism than their own people. Bro, have you looked in a mirror?
Totally. I mean, and their lies are so over the top. They're kind of funny. Like, if you want to be a really good Christian, you should follow the Jewish Sabbath. Wait, what? If you want to be a really good Christian, you should be Jewish and help Israel. Should I? Should I? Or is that lie a little too far? Okay. Look, I got it. It's our takeover of our government, our military, our media. It's unreal. All right, we got to take a break here, guys. Let's take a quick break, and when we come back, Corey Lewandowski, man, he's bringing old school corruption back. We'll tell you all about it.
Cenk, you're a natural born athlete.
All right, thank you to everybody writing in on Super Chat and otherwise wishing me a happy birthday. I really appreciate you guys. So Cool Nelson, sorry, both 3670. Cool Hulu. He says, happy birthday, Cenk. Thank you for the platform you created and have grown over the years. I've been a fan for over 16 years. Wow, that's amazing. So you started when I was 40. Okay, I can't believe I'm 56. I can't believe it. Anyways, you guys are all beautiful and amazing. Restful Draugr says, happy birthday, Cenk. I'm a socially moderate Marxist. Wait, what? Okay, that's amazing. And I don't agree with everything I hear on TYT, but I know I can trust shows like TYT to deliver the news. Thanks for doing what you do. No, seriously, I love that comment because it's not my job to tell you what your opinion is, right? It's our job to bring you facts, and then I'll give you my analysis and my perspective. But at the end of the day, you don't have to agree with that. You can take the facts we give you and decide whatever, wherever you are on the political spectrum. I love it. Way to have an open mind and care about what's true. Dragon My Ass says, happy birthday. Thanks to my furiously happy warrior for all you have done and continue to do. You guys are way too nice to me. Thank you guys. RC7801 says, for the birthday boy, the honesty and the good vibes, keep it up. Thank you. Now on a different note, Abdullah Siraj writes in, first it was Ben Shapipi and now it's Micro Mark Levin. We're at this stage of politics. My TSDP says, Doğum günü kutlu olsun Cenk. Sağ ol abi. That was happy birthday in Turkish. And then we go to our members on tyt.com. And Jack Callahan, oh, I'm out of time, damn it. We'll be back.
All right.
You got that
ready to go, Jordan?
all day long, Janky.
Yes.
You.
All right, we're good.
All right, back on TYT, Cenk and Jordan with you guys. Subversive queer username Dragon, brother of Cenk, that's his handle, says, Daddy Cenk, can we get a birthday gift? You and Jordy promised not to yell at each other today. I thought you were gonna ask us to yell at each other, but no, your wish is granted, no problem. We will not yell at each other. Okay, look at that. You're getting the birthday gift. Okay, not Jordan, the member. Jordan likes it.
I didn't agree to that. I didn't agree to that.
That's true. I'm just speaking for myself. Okay. All right, Jordan, take it away.
Private companies allege that Corey Lewandowski had sought to enrich himself during his time working at the Department of Homeland Security. The executive of a private prison is even one of his accusers, and we've got all of the salacious details. But Cenk, what are your 2 cents here?
Yeah, he's bringing old school corruption back. This isn't like campaign contributions and dark money and PACs. No, this is pay me, otherwise you don't get a government contract. It is over the top. So Jordan, tell him about it.
Now, allegations of Lewandowski's corruption erupt from an ongoing beef between Lewandowski and George Zoley, the CEO of the private prison company known as GEO Group. Back before Lewandowski was even in DHS, he and Zoley had conflict during Trump's transition after he won the 2024 election. NBC News reports Lewandowski told Zoley that he wanted to be paid in exchange for protecting and growing GEO Group's DHS contracts, according to a senior DHS official and 3 people familiar with their discussion. According to sources who spoke to Zoley, he claims he rejected Lewandowski's solicitation, but the confrontation between the two was described as tense. Now, with Trump's new draconian immigration policy, Zoley, as the CEO of one of the largest private prison companies, was initially giddy at the prospect of securing contracts with the administration. But his optimism quickly soured when he discovered that Lewandowski accepted a position as a special government employee, essentially working as former DHS Secretary Kristi Noem as her chief of staff. It's worth noting that he was also allegedly having an affair with her. Zoley attempted to patch things up with Lewandowski and scheduled a meeting with him in early 2025. During that meeting, Zoley suggested GEO Group would pay Lewandowski a recurring consulting fee, but Lewandowski did not accept this offer. 2 sources who spoke to NBC News claimed he wanted to be paid based on the company's new or renewed contracts with DHS. One person with knowledge of the meeting told NBC News that he wanted payments, what some people would call a success fee. That's what you're calling it. Now, those 2 sources those 2 sources mentioned earlier maintain that Zoley refused Lewandowski's request for payment. And in the wake of this meeting, GEO Group saw its number of federal contracts shrink considerably. Despite a contract being awarded to them in December of 2025, a senior DHS official claimed that 2 weeks after their meeting, Lewandowski instructed him not to accept any future contracts with GEO Group. Lewandowski, through a spokesperson, denied this claim as well as the allegations leveled at him by GEO Group, saying This is absolutely false and did not happen. Mr. Lewandowski never demanded any payment or compensation from GEO Group at any time. And there's more, Cenk, but I want to bring you in here at just kind of the top level of this story. What do you make of it?
Yeah, so here's what is very unlikely to happen. A massive Republican donor and private prison operator, GEO Group, turning on the Republicans and accusing them of corruption when that didn't happen, right? And they're just like, oh, you know what? Let's just betray the guys that we've been in cahoots with for decades here that have gotten us all the money to build these loathsome private prisons. There's no good guys in this story, right? It's not like there's like someone on the left who's like, I think Lewandowski did something wrong. This guy is as right-wing as it gets and profits from some of the disgusting systematic corruption and systemic corruption within the US government. Greases the politicians with campaign contributions to get more private prisons. He has no incentive at all to go after Republicans like Corey Lewandowski, especially ones as connected as him and running the Department of Homeland Security. So it is deeply unlikely that they would make up this story and endanger any further contracts that they might get. And Jordan, you'll notice that these stories are now coming out when Lewandowski's on his way out. When he had the power, they were all still afraid of getting punished in the way that it looks like GEO Group was punished by Lewandowski. But now that he's on the outs, that Nome is being moved out, and that in every report in the world says that they're going out, even though they're both married to different people. And so he's going to be moved out of the Department of Homeland Security too. He's, now they can tell him everybody what actually happened. So now the knives come out and they start, shivving him, which they've wanted to do all along because he's been holding them apparently hostage and demanding ransom.
Yeah, it's interesting to see the shift, but the GEO Group is not the only one. Numerous senior officials at the White House have raised concerns that Trump's closest confidants and Trump himself about how Lewandowski stood to profit over contracts he was overseeing. One senior White House official told NBC News they had received a dozen complaints from at least 4 companies about Lewandowski's involvement in the contracting process during the second Trump administration. A company called Salis Worldwide Solutions, which had secured a contract with DHS worth around $1 billion, contacted a marketing firm on 2 separate occasions requesting that they bid for contracts with agencies under DHS. After initial calls with Salis, the marketing firm was contacted by Salis representatives. Those representatives suggested that the firm should properly thank the person who made the deal possible, naming Lewandowski and consulting firms connected to Lewandowski. In other words, it appears as though Salis was prodding the marketing firm to pay Lewandowski and or firms linked to him. Marketing firm refused and lost both bids. Now, Lewandowski and Salis deny that any of the above occurred. There's no evidence as of yet that Lewandowski successfully received money from any of those contracts, but the allegations are, to say the least, wild. And if you're upset about that, Cenk, I guess wait until you hear about Donald Trump's sons.
Yeah, so speaking of Donald Trump, look, there's 2 more things here. Number one, Lewandowski might actually be in trouble. And the reason is because he screwed over fellow Republicans and fellow right-wingers, right? If he screwed over the left wing or the average American, they'd be high-fiving, which leads to the second point. So Donald Trump asked his aides, hey, that $220 million ad campaign that Kristi Noem did for herself at the Department of Homeland Security, did Corey have anything to do with that? Did he profit off of that? Because Lewandowski, when he runs campaigns, and this is true of a lot of people who run campaigns, pay themselves a percentage of the ads that they run. So it's possible that Lewandowski got, not only did Noem get all the publicity from those ads, although it's now come back to bite her, but Lewandowski might have made a small fortune from the commission on those ads. So when he asked about that, Trump apparently told his aides, quote, Corey made out on that one. And what I got out of that, Jordan, is Trump thinks, game recognizes game. And he's like, Corey made out on that one. I stole all that money from the government. Okay. Like, they apparently think this is fairly normal. And the only reason he's getting thrown under a bus now is he screwed over too many Republicans.
Yeah, it's really disgusting. It's shameful. I want to say like this isn't us, but it is. It is. It's a government by and for crooks. It's just at warp speed now. They're not even trying to hide it. I mean, and we are overrun with corruption scandals that they don't even really register on people's radar anymore. I mean, remember the Tom Homan $50,000 cash in a fast food chain paper bag story from a few months ago? Where's that? It's just gone. Faded into the ether because we're just overrun with, Donald Trump, another corruption scandal. Donald Trump, another multi-million or multi-billion-dollar scandal. Donald Trump's sons somehow happened to be on the board of a company winning Defense Department contracts. They're doing it out in the open. I think we're so desensitized from the first term where he was so clearly profiting off the office that it's just not even a motivating factor anymore. Even just one of these things would end someone's political career 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, we even in the first Trump term, you had a member of Congress who had to resign in shame because he spent too much money on office renovations because he wanted it to look like Downton Abbey or something. That's a thing of the past. You could just do whatever you want. It's a joke. Everything is a joke.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So you're forcing me to say two more things. Look, Tom Homan made the term "get the bag" literal. Right? I mean, in any other administration, if an Obama official had gotten $50,000 in cash in a bag, that would have been the biggest scandal of the entire 8 years of Obama, and the Republicans would still be talking about, why don't you get the bag? Right? And with Homan, they're like, yeah, whatever. He got bribed. So what? So what? We're crooks. We're criminals. Homan's not here to round up the criminals. He's here to round up the cash because he is the criminal, right? And we're totally used to it, and we think it's now become normalized. And then finally, to your point about the sons and the family, look, just today in the news, Donald Trump did an unauthorized sale of $23 billion in weaponry to the Gulf countries. It's supposed to go through Congress. He's like, I don't care about the law. No, I'm not going to go through Congress. I'm going to do it in a non-constitutional way, and sent them $23 billion worth of contracts. And just last week, what was in the news, Jared Kushner is working on a new $5 billion deal with the Gulf countries. But I'm sure it's a wild coincidence. And by the way, Hunter Biden was a rank amateur. Jared Kushner's like $5 million deal from a Ukrainian gas company. I do declare, hold my champagne. Here's a $5 billion deal. And that's how you do corruption.
Yeah.
All right, we got to take a break here. When we come back, Josh Fetterman is shocked to find out that he's unpopular in the Democratic Party. Really? It will be. But by the way, the number is stunning. I've never seen a number like this. We'll share it with you when we come back.
You heard it with your own eyes.
All right, let's go to Super Chat. No vitriol here. It says, Merry birthday, Cenk. That's all I got to say about today. The rest sucks rocks. Robotic person says, many Canadian Jews like me agree fully with 100% of your coverage on the modern horror state of Israel. Hashtag not my name. And then in bold, thank you, Cenk. Well, thank you, brother. I mean, I love when objective, non-biased people call it out as it is, So let's get past the old allegiances and tribal connections, etc. And we love you, brother. And so don't let the Israelis or the Groypers convince you that it's all Jews or most Jews. That's nonsense, okay? focus our ire on the people who are actually doing wrong. So Michael Catalano, a YouTube member, says, I know it's not Operation Joy Day, but one of my best friends who's a 3-time Trump voter told me today that he's voting for Amy Acton and Sherrod Brown. Damn, okay, look at that. But I know they don't exist. Kevin Shea says, religion and Department of War, there is no better contradiction of terms than that. But brother, that's because they only care about the Old Testament. The New Testament's great. They're like, oh, New Testament, Sermon on the Mount. No, war, Old Testament. Engineer says, my brother had 2 friends, this is TYT.com members. My brother had 2 friends who went to the Air Force Academy and told him there was significant Christian influence that was back in the 70s, so this has been in the works for a long time. Jack Callahan says Christian Zionists and Israeli Zionists are the same poison. Keep it out of our government. What do you think you are? 10th century crusaders? We're worried about it. And Rudy Tootie says, hey, Pig Seth. That's it. All right, back on TYT, Cenk and Jordan with you guys. RC7801 and Spateman00 also just joined by hitting the join button and became American heroes. Much love, guys, and don't forget to switch your cell phone service so you make more money or save more money. TYT.com/switch. And I started reading Rudy Tootie's message, so let me just finish that real quick. He's a member on TYT.com. He said, hey, Pig Seth, what about Jesus' commandment to love one another, and by this all other commandments are fulfilled? Yeah, but you're talking about New Testament and Jesus. Everybody in this administration is about the Old Testament, which is another funny coincidence. Okay, anyways, Jordan, what's next?
Take a look at this.
John Fetterman is doing as well with Pennsylvania Democrats as the New York Giants are as liked in the state of Pennsylvania or the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. I mean, just look at this. Among Pennsylvania Democrats, the net approval of Fetterman. Back in 2023, he was a Democrat liberal darling. He was at plus 68 points. Look at how low he has fallen down to negative 40 points. He's down there with the Titanic among Democrats in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And to put a comparison point on it, we always talk about how Chuck Schumer is not well liked by the Democratic base nationwide. Chuck Schumer has a net popularity rating of about -2 points.
John Fetterman has suffered a humiliating 108-point drop in popularity in his own state of Pennsylvania. And that is truly unprecedented. After running as a progressive, being elected as a progressive, Fetterman has infamously pivoted to the right, which is most likely the source of the massive decline. And we'll get into more and also what this might say about his reelection hopes. But Cenk, what do you make of this?
108-point swing is legendary. I've literally never seen that in 30 years of covering politics. That is a triple-point switch in the negative direction. Now, when he was at 60, he was doing things we agreed with, 68. Now, when he's at -40, he's doing the exact opposite. Gee, I wonder who's right about which way the direction of the Democratic Party should go. But after Jordan's done giving you some of the facts here, I want to share with you guys another stunning statistic, which has absolutely connected to what Fetterman's negative numbers are about, the real reason he's that low. But first, give him all the facts, Jordan.
Well, another Pennsylvania native, Governor Josh Shapiro, is trying to avoid the Fetterman trap, but can't help but to continue bungling his own message on Israel. And as you just heard, he pushed back against the notion that Israel is an apartheid state during his appearance on the Higher Learning podcast. And host Van Lathan pushed back.
You used the word apartheid. Take a look in Israel. Someone who would identify as Muslim, someone who would identify as a Palestinian Christian, they live in a society with all of the same rights and legal responsibilities. Please let me finish.
I got you.
As Israelis, they get elected to the Knesset, which is their parliament. They pay taxes. They can serve in the military. They are citizens in the world in a way that a true apartheid state would not allow for.
Okay, I mean, Palestinians in the West Bank and Gaza don't have the right to vote. They also aren't afforded self-determination or the ability to form their own state. And the 20% of Israel's Arab citizens might be able to vote, but they aren't treated equally either. They face systemic discrimination, socioeconomic disparities, and inequalities in housing, education, and municipal funding. While integrated into sectors like healthcare and academia, they experience social marginalization, heightened security surveillance, and increased tensions. Now, of course, no one is buying what Shapiro is selling. No one who actually understands or follows the issue. Aaron Rugenberg, contributing editor of the New Republic, pointed this out on X. Let's talk reality. A Jewish baby born today in the West Bank community will have full rights in Israel, a vote in national elections, and access to civilian courts. A Palestinian baby born in that same community will have no democratic rights, tight restrictions on their movement, frequent harassment from settlers, and no access to justice beyond what Israel's unaccountable military courts mete out. That's apartheid. So Governor Shapiro is either lying or ignorant of the reality on the ground in Israel. And he made similar statements while on Pod Save America. Take a look.
I disagree with that.
I know you do.
I do not think that they have all of the same rights. I think that there are both soft violations of their rights and more structural violations of their rights. You can look at things as the nation state law.
You mentioned apartheid, right? Or that was the comment that was made. And I would just say, as we engage in that, we should first address this fundamental question of what do we want in that region? And if we really want peace, and I believe you want that, then we've also got to be acknowledging that language matters here, that words matter. And then we've got to use words that are actually rooted in reality and are able to bring the temperature down to create a space for that peace, for that opportunity. And so that's how I view this entire conflict.
Before we go on, I want to point out he did another interview that same weekend with a friend of mine, Josh Green, who goes by Josh the Progressive on Instagram. And he flat out denied that there's a genocide taking place and used that same, we need to be careful about what words we use. Brother, I'm not worried about words right now when we're seeing what's happening. The label is beside the point, but the fact that you can't even acknowledge it shows what your intentions are. And it's a big deal that he's doing this considering that he wants to run in 2028, and that a YouGov poll found that 29% of Democrats who voted for Biden in 2020 withheld their votes in 2024 over the administration's inability to end the war on Gaza. These findings were provided to the DNC as part of their 2024 autopsy, which they then refused to release, prompting Axios to report in December of 2025. The DNC officials said they're keeping the report private to maintain the party's focus on winning back Congress in the 2026 midterms and avoid further internal conflict over its chaotic 2024 cycle. Then in a follow-up piece last month, it was reported that activists from the IMEU Policy Project told the DNC that the Biden-Harris administration's support for Israel was a factor in the party's loss because it drained support from some young people and progressives. Hamid Bendas, a spokesperson for the IMEU Policy Project, said that during the meeting, the DNC shared with us that their own data also found that policy was, in their words, a net negative in the 2024 election. Two other senior aides at the pro-Palestinian organization also said the DNC had drawn that conclusion. Axios independently verified that Democratic officials conducting the autopsy believed the issue harmed the party's standing with some voters. But it's important to clock what Shapiro is attempting to do. He's message testing on Israel to see what he thinks could be more palatable to Democratic voters who are increasingly wary of our long-standing relationship with Israel. As put by Jewish Insider, the point of the discussion seemed to be to demonstrate a kind of modeling that Shapiro, a Jewish Democrat who has long been both a supporter of Israel and a critic of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, can show Democrats how to have a difficult yet transparent an empathetic conversation amid deep disagreements over Israel's actions in Gaza. Shapiro is making clear that if he runs for president, he does not intend to sidestep the party's most fraught foreign policy debate. He intends to shape it. So the exercise here is simple. Reframe criticisms of Israel as not being anti-Semitic, but as not being sufficiently anti-war. Make Zionism cool again. Soften your rhetoric and let naysayers know that you are sympathetic to them. Keep the conversation centered around how Israel is discussed here at home and barely on their actions at the global stage. Cenk, is this gonna work?
Yeah, no, absolutely not because of the number that I promised. But before I even do that, I gotta say Jordan was right. So Jordan and I had a debate as to who Kamala Harris should pick as her VP. I said Josh Shapiro. I had written an op-ed about that, and boy was I wrong. So he had done some good things in Pennsylvania, and that's what I hung my hat on. But I had no idea that he was this ridiculous on the issue of Israel and war and foreign policy. So guys, the number I was alluding to is 13% of Democrats now have a positive view of Israel. So why would you be against 87% of your voters? Only if you have a loyalty to another country. I mean, that's just obvious. And the polling that Jordan referred to and the autopsy they did of Kamala Harris's campaign was crystal clear. If we had more time, we can give you all the data around it. But it cost her the election. It caused a tremendous number of young people to switch their votes or to not vote. And look at the control that Israel has in this country. Kamala Harris knew that there was a good chance she was going to lose the election because of her loyalty to Israel, which the great majority, even back then, of Democratic voters did not want. And she said, "No, I'm loyal to Israel, and I'm not loyal to my own voters, and I'm not loyal to independents, to American voters overall." And she was willing to lose the election to bow her head to Israel. It is unbelievable. And now, what a giant liar Kamala Harris is. She is now maintaining, oh no, privately, I was telling Joe Biden that he should care more about the Palestinians. Oh, shut up. Okay, number one, you didn't do any of that. You're a giant liar. Number two, what do I care about your private whisperings to Joe Biden, who had dementia and loved Israel more than almost any politician in America? Would he constantly come out and be like, "Oh, I am a Zionist"? Yeah, I got it, Joe. I got it, right? We all got it. And look at how little they care about actually defeating Donald Trump, actually protecting you, actually serving you. They're like, no way, Israel is way more important than that. We'd rather lose the election to Donald Trump. And they did. So now back to Josh Shapiro. I watched some of these interviews and they are comical, man. So let's start with this. The clip that you saw there where, oh no, Israel's not an apartheid state. They treat Muslims great. Brother, you're gonna have to come up with a lie better than that. That is preposterous. So he's talking about Arab Muslims and Christians that are inside of Israel proper and how they have some rights. They're harassed nonstop inside Israel, okay? So that's already a huge lie, but he's not counting 5.5 million Muslims and Christians who live in the West Bank and Gaza Strip. What are their rights? Zero. And Israel just slaughtered Gaza, destroyed every building in Gaza, and stole 53% of it, which they're never giving back. And Josh Shapiro is gonna tell us how great Israel is to Muslims? Look, not only are you disgustingly biased in this case, not only is it obvious that you will do just like Biden and Trump and hand a country over to Israel based on this nonsense propaganda, but you're also insulting our intelligence. You think we're stupid? In all of we didn't show it in the videos, but in every one of these interviews, he starts with, now the most important question is Israel's right to exist. No, it's not. That's an elementary question. Everyone who's a normal Democrat thinks Israel does have a right to exist. They just don't have a right to constantly attack their neighbors, kill their neighbors, and take their land. This isn't about Israel's right to question. That's not the question is, do the Palestinians have a right to exist? So when you start with, does Israel have a right to exist when they already exist, they have Iron Dome, they have nukes, and they have the biggest military in the Middle East. you're framing the question in a purposely disingenuous way. So you're making it seem like Israel's the victim. Oh my God, does Israel have a right to exist? You're gonna wipe out Israel. That's why they have to murder all their neighbors. No. He's totally, I thought he was an American. No, he works for Israel. That is the most disingenuous thing. And it really, I'm like personally insulted that he thinks that we're that stupid, that he could frame it in a tricky way with, does Israel have a right to exist? And reframe the whole conversation in favor of Israel. Brother, 13%, wake up. We don't like Israel, and not because they're Jewish. Stop lying about that. That is a further insult. That's saying Democratic voters are filled with hatred in their heart and that we're all bigots. What a disgustingly insulting thing to say to your own voters. That's why Fetterman's at minus 40%. That is a favorability. That is unreal. That's because he's spitting in our face. And now Josh Shapiro, a Democrat from the same state, doing the same exact thing. Last two things. He says, words have meaning. We have to talk about words. Yeah, okay, words do have meaning. That was a genocide. And you won't say it because apparently you're more loyal to Israel than to Democratic voters or America. Words do have meaning. Okay, it was a genocide, it is apartheid, and Israel did start these wars. But you want to use words to protect your beloved Israel instead of your voters, your state, or your country. And finally, he said, bring the temperature down. Are you kidding me, Josh? He signed missiles. And now he's blaming everyone who's legitimately criticizing Israel. And he's trying to make it seem like 87% of Democratic voters are anti-Semites. And you're bringing the temperature down? You know what you should do, Josh? Maybe you get your beloved Israel to turn the temperature down and stop invading 7 of their neighbors. They just displaced 1 million people in Lebanon, Muslims and Christians, and Shapiro's pretending Israel's the victim. Get your stupid army, the IDF, Josh, to bring the temperature down by stop murdering your neighbors and ethnically cleansing Lebanon and Gaza and stealing more and more land. And yes, it is stealing. Don't tell me that's anti-Semitic. We have eyes. It breaks my heart that it happens to be a government that calls itself the Jewish state, but they do not represent all Jewish people. We have tons of Jewish people in our families, in our friends, in our audience, and I love them. Don't do this. Don't pretend you're doing this in their name. This is a fascist government, and the map has expanded and expanded. Their territories expanded while he's pretending they're doing self-defense. No, under no circumstances should you vote for Josh Shapiro. Sorry, Jordan, you were totally right.
Okay.
Okay.
All good.
Well, look, guys, we're open-minded on the Young Turks, okay? And so facts matter. You have to take facts, and now that we've seen who the real Josh Shapiro is, I have taken those facts into account, and my opinion has changed. And you should do likewise. Do not get stuck in positions that are wrong. If you see facts, move to the position that is correct. Reality matters, and that's what we care about on the Young Turks. All right, Jordan, you're awesome, brother. Thank you. We appreciate you. Have a good weekend. And everybody come back for the revolution. We got a great guest for you guys. So we'll see you in a minute. All right, back on the revolution. I'm still amped up over that Josh Shapiro, John Fetterman segment, which I think I called at one point the Josh Fetterman segment. But anyways, all right, on to fixing the country and the planet in this case. We got a great guest for you guys, Heather Fipps. She's the executive director of Context Collab, and they got a big event called the Hollywood Climate Summit. I want to find out about it. Heather, how you doing?
I'm doing really well. Hi, nice to see you, Cenk. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. So tell me about Context Collab. What is that?
Yes, so we are a nonprofit organization, and our mission is to direct cultural attention to climate issues by leveling up how they appear and resonate in the media that we already know and love. So that looks like film and television, but also social media, video games, music, podcasts, digital series as well. So everywhere that the media ecosystem is interacting with our lives in a daily way, adding climate context and resonance to the human story so that people are reaching this information and connecting with it in different ways.
Yeah, so let's keep it real. You know, Trump's president, we got 3 more years, so we're gonna go backwards for at least 4 years. And climate change feels like it's totally fallen off the map in terms of the national conversation. So what do we do? How do we have hope?
It's the perfect question, and I think it's why I really emphasize the word attention and why media is an incredibly strategic tool that we need to use right now. Because when policy is stalled, when corporate interests are getting in the way of how they can move about the world, when our participation at a national level is blocked, we need culture to shift the will of the people and communicate and command our attention. And I think, I'll be honest with you, I don't think that climate was enough on the agenda. Even in the last election cycle, it was hardly discussed, it was hardly brought up. And so it needed to be a mission for a long time to really direct our attention. And I think part of what feels challenging about this issue for people is that it feels too big, too abstract. And what gets in front of us is the everyday pain, the everyday challenges that we're experiencing. But where climate is really important to direct our attention to is that it's an issue amplifier. It's connected to everything that is affecting us. It's going to worsen issues that are social issues in every possible way. And we need to direct and connect our attention and our understanding of climate so that it becomes a top agenda, regardless of what administration is in power, and frankly, regardless of what commands our attention in other ways, like we're seeing happen with AI and other issues. It's just very easy to get distracted, but it's the one thing that's going to make everything intensely more difficult in navigating.
Yeah, so let's talk about an example. It was the movie Don't Look Up. It was #1 on Netflix of all time for a while. It was a great movie, terrific director, hottest director, Adam McKay, co-written by David Sirota, who was on this show just yesterday.
Amazing.
Yeah, and so I loved it. I thought it was fantastic. I thought it was, near perfect for what you would want to do. So tell me about, okay, did that work? Do you think that changed some minds? How does something like that affect policy?
Absolutely. So I'm actually really thrilled to say that that specific project, I think it worked and it was very successful in a couple of ways. First, it commanded a lot of people's buy-in and attention just in the fact that it is, I believe, currently the #4 most watched movie on Netflix of all time, and has held that record for a very long time. I think it was only knocked down by demon K-pop hunters recently. But the other thing is that we work with an amazing team of social behavioral scientists who actually did a research on audience responses to their sentiment on certain issues and on specifically climate issues after watching that film. And after watching Don't Look Up, they did find that audience sentiment had moved to be more in support of voting for politicians who were advocates of climate, to be more in support of feeling like climate should be a priority in policymaking and decisions. That organization is called RARE. There's a case study available online that people can check out. But on a number of ways, it's been studied that it does affect people's opinions and sense of urgency on the issue. And I think more importantly, it broke through in commanding people's attention because it was a popular, successful entertaining film that also made a lot of people feel really connected to it in that way.
And so let's talk about preaching to the choir versus convincing independents or flipping right-wingers. So preaching to the choir, good, you're gonna need it anyway to get activism and energy and push things forward, especially within the agenda of the left to the different issues. But that's relatively easier, right? So can this kind of, whether it's entertainment, things in media, that all the efforts that you're talking about, can that actually begin to convince independents or flip right-wingers?
I absolutely does. I think it's just going to resonate with them differently based on the different story tactics that are used. And so an example is that I feel most people feel pretty polarized by the news that they consume, but a lot of even polarized families can sit down at a dinner where they don't agree on anything, but they can discuss the TV shows that they are finding entertaining. They can talk about the social media clip that was very funny that they all found entertainment value from. So it actually, media tends to be a bridge that connects different ideologies. And then I think the way that we tell stories that speaks to different ideologies and political perspectives is you have the show like Yellowstone, for example, where it's not going to talk about climate, it's not going to draw attention to it, but what it talks about in the narrative of that television show is pushing back against land development on rural areas. It has environmental values of conservation. It has indigenous conservation within the narrative of that is reaching across the aisle and in fact resonating more across the aisle. And I would say similarly, video games is a major opportunity where we see that there's actually a lot of sentiment and interest in environmental stories. A recent poll showed 81% of gamers said that they're interested in more environmental content in games. And I think gamers have quite a broad political ideology as well.
Yeah, so Yellowstone's actually a terrific example. I hadn't thought of that. I watched it, and you're right. There was a constant theme of conservation, which is also environmentalism. Let's protect the earth, right? And it was from the point of view of a very right-wing character and characters, but also Native Americans too. And it was powerful, and it's also that's resonant within the right-wing culture. They actually are conservationists, and in Utah, when the Trump administration, the first term, tried to federalize some land, they were like, no, we want to protect that land for just visiting, but also hunting, fishing, etc. So there are natural allies there, and you just have to know how to talk to them. So totally agree with that. Speaking of which, so what is the Hollywood Climate Summit in particular?
Yeah, so the Hollywood Climate Summit is an annual gathering where we bring together and collide professionals working in the creative media industries with climate experts and environmental advocates of all kinds. And we have a knowledge exchange where we illuminate ways that we can be bringing climate topics, nuance, current issues into the media that people are creating. Again, whether that's a podcast, whether that is a storyline in a television show. And we celebrate projects that are integrating that climate context into their work, and we reflect it back and break it down with experts. And we'll, take a look at things like Twisters working with meteorologists as experts, or Jurassic Park working with social scientists to really get their nature-based solutions narratives as tight as possible. And so looking at sort of like the ways that media is already reflecting some accuracy of our climate scenario and is connecting it with different storylines. And so it is a space for anyone that is an entertainment professional or media professional to come and really understand how their unique skills, where they are with the attention that they are getting through their work, can activate and bring people's consciousness to climate in a number of different ways that are going to organically and very authentically integrate into the stories that they're already telling. It's not painting it on thick or putting a very forward message that you're shoving down people's throat, but it's finding ways like Yellowstone that you can have a public lands conversation, or snow is not a part of your family vacation storyline, or a school garden storyline in your show about elementary school kids. So there's so many ways that this can come up and integrate into storytelling, and we unpack that and celebrate the ways that it's happening.
So if you could get one message to the American people through media or any other means to convince them to believe the scientists that climate change is very real and an enormous problem for not really the planet. I actually don't think it's the planet, it's us. The planet will just shake us off, right? And then it'll go back to being fine after we're gone. But I care about the humans. So I'm just curious, what do you think is the top message that could help convince Americans, no, guys, we really have to tackle this?
I would honestly say look to your own story and your own experience. Climate at this point is experiential. For the most part, everyone has experienced an extreme weather alert at this point. We have had many people lose their homes from flooding, from fire, from extreme weather events. We are noticing where we are changes in weather, in odd weather patterns, in drought. I think that if you look at your own story and you search and find out other ways that people are reflecting it and how it's affecting their lived experiences, and the more that we start to see that and connect the dots that we are all affected by this right now, not in the distant future, I don't think you need to be convinced that something is affecting you. And also there's the systemic issues of looking at increasing energy bills and costs that are happening. Insurance companies pulling the ability to cover homes if they're in highly climate impacted areas. These are things that are affecting people right now in their day-to-day lives. Those are the issues that I think are going to make people feel like it's affecting them and connect, that you don't need to be convinced when it's already happening to you. So I hope that people look to their own story, their own lived experience, and I hope that they find through other stories that people are telling and the ways that people are talking about it, that we are putting together the puzzle that of this is affecting all of us, and we have to urgently address this, or it's only going to increasingly, unfortunately, get worse.
Yeah. So look, I'm populist left, and Young Turks has been known to be on the left, obviously, right? It's not a surprise to anyone. But this showed the revolution is for right, left, and center, right? And so I think something that connects us, that is connected to climate change, is us having to pay for all the storms, the superstorms that keep battering us. And one of the questions that I have on behalf of all Americans is, why do we have to pay for that? That's a cost of the oil and gas industry. They created that cost, so why don't they pay for their own costs?
That is entirely correct. And I think that another angle that I would pose is that I would encourage people to look at the ways that media has largely been funded and directed our thinking around what we've been told to think or not think about climate, and where are those instincts coming from? Is it from narratives that are being told to us from sources? For example, the fossil fuel industry is spending $7 billion on media spend every year to tell us the story that this isn't happening, that if it is happening, it doesn't matter and it's too late, and that we need them forever, and there is no way that we can move away from a fossil fuel economy. Following the money also really helps illuminate that we are being told a story, that we are need to really come up with the counter narrative and our own understanding of what is happening.
Yeah, so wait, you said 7 billion. That's a very interesting number. So how do they spend 7 billion? Because I don't even know that in the media to push that message out.
Through advertising, through media spend, through positive, putting out sort of positive portrayals of themselves, and that comes through cultural spend. Honestly, we have a lot of sports organizations that are funded through fossil fuel sponsorships. We have media spend and ad spend that is behind a lot of advertisement and marketing. So, and that funds a lot of the shows and things that we consume. So it's really important to understand that there is, and social media creators as well. I think that there's a lot of big industry that invests in cultural influencers to sort of push narratives that are trying to convince people of their agenda, not the truth.
Yeah, but would influencers be purchased by, oh yeah, okay, never mind. Okay.
I don't know. I've never seen an influencer push a brand before. I don't think that would happen.
Or foreign government or anything along those lines. All right. So Heather, last question. What can the average person do that's watching this now to make a difference?
I would say two things. One, I really encourage everyone to vote with your attention. If you would like to see more storylines and media that is connecting us with our environmental values, reflecting a world that we want to live in aspirationally, I really encourage you to find that, support creators that are engaging with this. That goes a long way. What gets funded more in the media ecosystem is what has viewers and what has people paying attention to it. So go find the things that reflect your values environmentally, and that will help us create a bigger media landscape. And the other thing is own your own story. Like I said, look into your own lived experience, understand how you're connecting with the changes that are happening in our environment, and use your story to build power. When we put our stories out there, other people connect with them, and that has a ripple effect that turns into a movement where we all feel connected and we all feel courage because we feel emboldened from one another, feeling the same and connecting over an issue. So use your story and be sure to vote with your attention.
Yeah, I'll just add to that real quick that teams are so much stronger than individuals. So you never know who's going to deliver on a team. And I've been watching sports my whole life, and it is very often the person you least expected, right? So join the team if that's the team you're on and you believe in that cause, and you never know what kind of difference you can make. All right, Heather Fipps, Executive Director of Context Collab. Thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely. All right, guys, I'm actually gonna do a bonus episode for you all right now. Just a quick one, because I do have to run to the beginning of the birthday festivities with the kids. But let's do a quick one. I wanna read more of your comments, and if you got any questions, I'll take some last couple of questions from you guys. So guys, do we have to switch the stream here, or can we just keep going? Do you know? Yeah, just keep going. All right, guys. So all of you who are not members, love you guys. Have an awesome weekend, and I'll see you on Monday. Oh, by the way, Joe Kent will be on the show next week. Okay, so just found that out. That's going to be huge. So make sure you tune in next week. We'll see you then. Members, stay here. All right. I assume we did our voodoo on that, and the members are here. Yep, great. So let me read last couple.